Hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I have this Ricoh 35 film camera. So this is basically a rangefinder camera from 1955. So over here on the right side of the camera, we have this is basically the focus ring for the camera. So do know that it's a little bit tight because it's not being used for quite a while. So to pay attention to where the focusing area is, you have to look at the square box right here. And do note that this number here is the aperture, the 16:8 3.5. So that means to say that within the range of aperture 16, this is the range of the focusing area is. So basically in this ring here is the units is all in feet. So meaning to say that at aperture 16, between 4.5 feet to 30 feet, everything is in focus. So that is how you read the focusing everything. So this is actually a manual focus camera, so it's focusing the same kinds of like ways inside a rangefinder, so that you know there's a yellow color thing, make sure that it's overlap and things like that. So I'll create a video on how to explain like how to make sure that object is focused. So basically the objects, the two mirror image will overlap each other and exactly the same spot, it means that it's focused. So that is how to do a focusing for this of rangefinder. So over here we have done the second ring here. This is actually the aperture size. So where is the setting? It's a bit the red dot here. So this camera has a maximum aperture of 3.5 and the smallest aperture can goes to is 16, extended for most cameras. So over here we have this the outer ring is basically the shutter speed. It has the lower shutters of bulb mode, 1 per 10, 1 per 25, 1 per 50, 1 per 100 and 1 per 200 over here. So to press the shutter to crank it up, is basically this lever here. You pull it down, then you have to wind it, then you press. So basically this is where your film counter will go through here. This is like to tell you when you load in already, this is how many shots you have left, everything. So once you wind it up, everything, the number of shots left is lesser. So let's say for example you've taken up to 36 photos already. This is the button where you press here, then you pull this thing up is to rewind the film. So you have to press this. This is actually the like to rewind the film in, you just have to pull this thing up and you rewind. Technically you can actually pull, you don't need to pull up, you can actually just like rewind this, but it's a bit more harder, using up more energy. So this is about it. And to load in the film for this camera, this is a very tricky part. I mean, it's not going to be very tricky. So this camera now is in a closed position. To open up the back door is basically you have to make sure that you have to press it to open, the red color sign here. And also that when you putting it back the time, you have to make sure that, because this is the film counter right here, this thing is basically where you set up the film is. Yeah, so you have to make sure that where you set the film is, everything. This thing can be moved around one. So if you load in the film already, remember to set it at 0. I forgot to say that just now. I mean, because this camera is still quite new to me. So once you load it in, you just have to make sure that your film here is loaded in. So just to make sure that because how to tell if this door is being closed tight, firstly, this thing will work only if the door behind is closed tight. So now I just trying to open it up to you. So what I do is you just have to put it as O and O, then you have to pull this thing up, open gently. There you go. So basically this is where you load in the film is. So you basically put a roll of film in, then you pull up all the way, and then if you see the slot right here, this This is a slot right here. Sorry, it's not this slot here. It's the slot at the end here. Yeah, this is basically where you put in your roll of film in the tube. The tail end of the film, make sure that it slides into here. Make sure it clips it in right here. You can see this thing. This thing is a flip that you can, it's a bit flexible. You can put the film in, make sure it's tight. So when the film is tight already, you close back the back cover. Then you just use the lever. Then you just wind it up. Then you look into the center. Here's basically where you can take a photo. But you can't see because not in a fast shutter. So if I go for a low shutter, 1/10, you look into the center, you can see that it starts to take photo. So basically how does this lever thing work is basically once you advance the lever, you can see there's actually the mechanism right here. You will tend to move along. So it's something like a power. It shifts its momentum from this wheel to this wheel that turns the thing. So basically it's like a gear that moves to drive this thing up. So once you drive already, this thing will rotate. Then you just press the shutter. Then you can go on. So once you stop here, you just press the shutter to release. So basically, if you didn't press the rewind button here, you see this wheel cannot move. But if you press this button, if you press, you can see it can move in the clockwise direction. So if it stops, you cannot move it anymore. Yeah, so if it's like the button's not depressed, you cannot move back clockwise. So you have to put the roll of film in, likewise just now I told you already. Then to close back this cover door, this is a tricky part that most people will tend to get annoyed at, because there's a base plate right here. So basically you have to make sure that your film is right here. One small finger, you just try to push the base plate a little bit to the back, because this one here there's actually a groove. Over here is a groove, so basically it just slides over it and all. So this is like how you load. Is similar to those like Leica M3, M3 and all these things. Those old Leica, Canon M, where the back door can like come out of those type one. So you just have to make sure that everything is tight. Like make sure it's all tight, everything. And you just have to make sure that everything's well. And you need to have a lot of practice for these old model cameras, because to me it took me a few times to load in, to close the back door properly, and to make sure that the camera can advance. Yes, because if the back door is not closed tightly, the camera will not able to like advance. This thing will not able to move, and you feel there's no resistance in terms of like putting the lever up. So if it's tight already, if you advance the lever, you can see that this thing works. You can see this thing, basically this thing here will work. If it's not tight enough, then you just have to make sure that it's tight again. Once you see it's tight already, this thing is able to rotate. So you just have to make sure it's tight. Just put the button to close. Make sure that it's in C mode. Then once you advance, there you go. It's tight right now. So this is to how to make sure that your film door is tight. So you just have to make sure that this thing here will turn, and it's to tell you that it's been tight. So otherwise everything. So that's all for this walkthrough for this Ricoh 35, because I found out there's not many people who own this. It's quite a rare camera anyways. I got it for about 100 Singapore dollars. So anyway, thank you for watching. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, comment down what you see below, and I see you all soon. Bye.